Hi, my name is Heather, and today I'm going to talk with you about sheath and udder cleaning. The reason that we clean sheaths and udders is because it can be very uncomfortable for the horse if that's not cleaned regularly. So debris and smegma for geldings and old dead skin cells will all get up in their sheath and their udders, and it can be really uncomfortable for them. At some points, it can make it where the horse can't even urinate properly. They may begin rubbing their tails out, and I've even seen cases where the horse is lame for geldings if it's not cleaned regularly because it's so painful. So before you start cleaning a sheath, make sure the horse is comfortable with it, and you may need a handler to help you hold him if they want to strike out at you. It's just great if the horse is nice and relaxed about it, but sometimes they do need sedation, which actually can be helpful because then they do like to drop their penis, and that makes it a lot easier for you to clean. I like to wear gloves, latex gloves. I like to make sure my nails are very clipped and short so that I don't nick them and hurt them because that's a very sensitive area. And then we like to use ivory soap. It's very mild, but it also cuts grease really well, which is great for cutting that smegma because it's really kind of an oily consistency to it. And then before you start, you should make sure that your hose water is not too cold or too hot. It should be very lukewarm and not gonna hurt the horse in any way. That's a very sensitive area. A spot that I like to feel on my arm to make sure that it is gonna be comfortable for the horse is right on my wrist. It tells you your wrist has pretty thin skin right there, so it's really able to tell you if it's too hot or not. If it's comfortable for you right there, then you can go ahead and use that water. So and you may need a washcloth, a pretty soft one, like terry cloth, or a sock if the smegma is on there pretty hard and the crust stuff is stuck on the sheath pretty intensely. So when you begin sheath cleaning, you want to make sure that your nails are short because you don't want to be scraping them on the inside and making it a good experience for them. So when you start sheath cleaning, you want to I like to rinse out the sheath with the water and kind of get the debris and smegma and the dead skin cells really loosened up. So I like to take the end of the hose, and sort of cover it like this with my hand with the hose like right here, because I don't want to cut the horse with the end of the hose. So I cover it with my hand like that and go up the sheath. Some people, when they begin sheath cleaning, it's very surprising how big the sheath the cavity is itself. You can get your arm pretty high up in there. So when I'm preparing the horse, I like to have this. So if the horse was standing right here, I would have my hand over the top of his back, almost near his hindquarters, and then have my ear kind of by his flank, and then have the hose. And and have my body facing towards the back of him, because that kind of gives me an out if he's starting to kick at me or something like that. It kind of gives me and if I can feel his muscles starting to tense with that other hand, I can have an indication to get out of the way before he actually kicks me. So after I start with my glove going up in the hose, up his sheath, I like to just rinse it out really well. Make sure you're getting into that all up in the higher parts of the sheath. And if the horse is dropping, that's great. Then you're able to rinse off the rest of the penis and really kind of get the urethra and the little pocket that actually holds the beans wet, and that can kind of loosen stuff up as well. And then I like to put a generous amount of ivory soap on my entire arm, all the way up to like here, and just get that all full of soap. Because when I reach up in there, then it gets everywhere. It's not snagging with my hand and my skin rubbing against it. It's just a nice smooth surface. And then I can start massaging with my fingers. And then hopefully, if you clean regularly, then and it depends on the horse, but sometimes it's much easier to get off. Horses that are cleaned bi-weekly are probably going to be a lot easier than the horses that are cleaned every 6 months to a year. So it just depends on the horse and how much they need to be cleaned. But sometimes it's rather easy to clean a sheath, and sometimes it takes a lot longer. And you just need to be patient. It's not fair to the horse to be trying to scrape that all off with your nails and stuff. You just need to massage and be gentle about it. And if the horse is getting upset about it, rinse it out and come back and do it again the next day and try again. Don't upset them when horses are coming through or it's feed time. Just help them and be kind to them in that way. And it's a really sensitive thing. So being kind as possible to them and making it as much of a pleasant experience is important. So after you have all of the crusty stuff out, sometimes it's like flakes almost, and then sometimes it's like hard chunks. It just kind of depends on the horse of what comes out, and sometimes they're like pretty generous size flakes that come out. So you just need to clean those out first, get those rinsed off, and then I do like 2 or 3 rinsings. And so I rinse it out, and I kind of usually go back and kind of feel to see if I missed something. And if I feel a lot of stuff that I missed, then I like to go in there and do it again. And with the soap and just try it again. And sometimes if it's really not coming off, you can actually just let the soap kind of sit in there and let it soak into and break apart the oils to get the stuff out from in the sheath. So after you're done rinsing, and you're done getting the sheath clean, if the horse is dropped, like I talked about before, you can try and get the bean out, which is accumulation of debris and dirt and all that. It gets stuck in a cavity by the urethra, and it actually can block the horse from urinating and be very painful. So this is done by taking one of your smaller fingers with your gloves on and gently just scooping the bean out. Sometimes there's multiple, but usually it can usually just be one. And then, yeah, you just take it out, and then you should also rinse that generously as well with the hose. So it's just really being gentle to the horse and their private parts and all those things, and making sure that they're comfortable with the situation, and making sure that you have gloves on and that your nails are clipped, that the water isn't too hot, because you can make a horse very sour to getting their sheath cleaned if they're not having a pleasant experience. And moving on to the udders of a mare, this is a much easier process. I still wear gloves when I do it, just to make it nicer for the mare. I also like to kind of let it sit on, take the hose and let it sit onto the horse's udders. So you just take the hose up and rinse it off gently. You also should not have the water pressure too high, because if it's just like blasting the sheath or the udders, that's going to just make the horse really upset. No one wants to feel that. And so then I'm going to gently rinse. If you choose, you can let it sit for a little while. I like to put some soap right on like the nipples and the teats, just to try and get that old dead skin and dirt kind of loose, just to make it easier to get it off. And so then I gently massage around the nipples and the teats with my fingertips like this. And it should come off fairly easy. You shouldn't really have to scrub with mares. It usually comes off pretty easily, and a lot of mares really enjoy it. The mares that may have not nursed a foal, they might really not enjoy it though. So it's just getting to know the horse and getting to know what they prefer. And with the mares, I also like to rinse off generously. Just like I did with the geldings, I like to make sure I have all of that soap out. If it's falling down in between the crevice of their legs, their back legs, I like to make sure I have that all rinsed out. Just making sure that there's no soap residue left over, because if the soap is left over, then the horse's skin will dry out, and likely then they're going to start rubbing their tail out, because they're going to be really uncomfortable with that as well. So just getting to know your horse. Usually horses are really obvious if they need their sheath cleaned. They'll start to smell. You can smell it from just standing next to them. They'll start rubbing their tail. Again, like I said, they can be lame. Mares typically rub their tails. So just getting to know your string and know what your boss prefers is really good, because they'll have an idea of how often the horse needs to be cleaned as well. Thank you.